My name is Khalid Ahmed, and for most of my life, I lived as a devout Sheikh. I was respected in my community, a teacher and leader who dedicated my days to studying and teaching the Quran. People sought my guidance on matters of faith, trusting my knowledge and unwavering commitment to Islam. My life revolved around prayer, fasting, and the traditions passed down through generations. I believed I was fulfilling my purpose, walking the straight path that would lead me to paradise. Outwardly, I had everything: respect, influence, and a clear sense of direction. But deep inside, there was a quiet restlessness I couldn't ignore. Late at night, when the world was silent, questions would creep into my mind. Was I truly at peace with God? Was my devotion enough? I dismissed these doubts, fearing that even entertaining them could be a sign of weakness or disbelief. One evening, after leading prayers at the mosque, I collapsed. The pain was sudden and sharp, and everything around me blurred. Before I knew it, my body fell limp, and I could hear voices shouting for help. But those voices faded quickly, replaced by an eerie silence. I felt myself slipping away, leaving behind everything I had known. In that moment, I had no idea my life was about to change forever. The moment my body hit the ground, everything around me went silent. I expected pain or the chaos of people rushing to my aid, but instead, there was nothing. It was as though I had been cut off from the world entirely. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the mosque or the hospital. I was somewhere else entirely. The air was heavy, and an impenetrable darkness surrounded me, stretching endlessly in every direction. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. I tried to move, to call out, but no sound came from my mouth. Fear began to creep in, its icy grip tightening around me. I had always believed that death would lead to immediate clarity, judgment, or paradise. But this was neither. This was a void, an emptiness that felt alive, as though it was watching me, waiting. Then came the whispers, faint at first, like murmurs on the wind, but they grew louder and more distinct. They weren't comforting, they were accusing. They spoke of my life, of choices I had made, of moments I had buried deep within my heart. "You thought you knew the truth," one voice hissed, "but you were blind." Suddenly, images began to flash before me. They weren't memories as I had lived them. They were moments from my life seen through a lens I had never considered before. I saw myself preaching, instructing others in the faith, and leading prayers. On the surface, it looked righteous, but the whispers peeled back the layers, exposing the pride hidden beneath. I had taken pride in my knowledge, in the respect I commanded, and in the adherence to rituals that I thought would secure my salvation. The darkness seemed to close in tighter, suffocating me. The whispers turned into a cacophony of voices, all pointing out my flaws, my doubts, my failures. I saw times when I had been quick to judge others for not living up to my standards, moments when I had dismissed people's pain because I believed their struggles were due to a lack of faith. I saw how my pride had created walls between myself and others, and worse, between myself and God. My heart felt heavy, as if it was being weighed down by the truth of my life. I had spent years seeking to serve God, but had I truly known Him? Or had I simply followed the rules, thinking that my devotion would be enough? These questions cut deeper than any blade, and I felt an overwhelming sense of despair. I had believed I was on the right path, but now I wasn't so sure. In that moment, I fell to my knees. The darkness was so thick that I couldn't see the ground beneath me, but I could feel its weight pressing down on me, crushing me. "God," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the noise of the voices. "If you are truly merciful, if you are truly there, show me the truth. I don't know what to do. Please help me." For a moment, there was silence. The voices stopped, and the darkness seemed to hold its breath. Then, out of nowhere, a light appeared. It was small at first, like a flicker of a candle in the distance, but it grew brighter and brighter, piercing through the darkness. As it moved closer, the shadows around me recoiled, shrinking back as though they couldn't stand to be near it. The light enveloped me, and I felt warmth and peace like I had never known. The fear and despair that had gripped me moments before melted away, replaced by a profound sense of comfort. I could feel the presence of someone in the light, someone powerful yet gentle. And then I heard a voice. It wasn't like the accusing whispers I had heard earlier. This voice was strong, steady, and filled with love. "Khalid," the voice said, calling me by name, "you have sought the truth your entire life, but you have been blind to it. I have come to show you what you could not see." I tried to speak, to ask who was speaking to me, but the words wouldn't come. The light grew brighter, and the presence in it drew closer. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. The love radiating from the light was overwhelming, and I could feel it reaching into the deepest parts of me, exposing everything but offering no condemnation. "Khalid," the voice continued, "you have relied on your works, your knowledge, and your traditions, but they cannot save you. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." The words struck me like a thunderbolt. They were familiar, words I had dismissed before as the teachings of another faith. But now, spoken in this light, they carried a weight and power that I couldn't deny. I felt the truth of them resonate deep within me, breaking through every barrier I had built over the years. The light surrounded me completely, and I felt tears streaming down my face. For the first time, I understood how lost I had been, and for the first time, I felt truly found. I didn't know what lay ahead, but in that moment, I knew that my life would never be the same. The truth had found me, and it had set me free. As the light enveloped me, I was overwhelmed by a presence that radiated peace, love, and authority. There was no mistaking it. This was Jesus, the one whose name I had heard but never truly understood. His eyes met mine, and in that instant I felt completely exposed. Every secret, every hidden thought, every flaw in my heart was laid bare before him. Yet there was no condemnation in his gaze. Instead, it was filled with compassion, as though he had been waiting for this moment. "Khalid," he said, his voice gentle yet commanding, "you have sought truth your entire life. You have sought to serve God with devotion and zeal. But the path you walked was one of striving, not of grace." His words pierced my heart. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to list the years of prayer, fasting, and teaching. But as I opened my mouth, I realized that every defense I could offer was hollow. Deep down, I knew he was right. I had spent my life trying to earn God's approval, believing that my devotion, my works, and my knowledge would secure my place in paradise. Jesus extended his hand, and suddenly scenes from my life began to unfold around us. It was as though I was standing in the middle of a great tapestry, each thread representing a moment in my life. At first, I saw the good. My dedication to prayer, my teaching of the Quran, my efforts to lead others in faith. These moments were sincere, driven by a desire to honor God. But then, the tapestry shifted. I saw moments I had long buried, moments where my pride had overshadowed my faith. I saw myself correcting others harshly, more concerned with being right than being loving. I saw the times I had judged those who struggled with their faith, dismissing them as weak instead of offering them compassion. I saw how my position as a sheikh had made me feel superior, as though my knowledge made me closer to God than others. You relied on your knowledge and your works, Jesus said, his voice steady. But they blinded you to the truth. You taught others about God, but you did not truly know Him. You followed the rules, but you missed the relationship. His words were like a mirror, reflecting the truth I had refused to see. Tears streamed down my face as I realized how far I had fallen short. I had thought my devotion was enough, but I had missed the very heart of faith. Knowing God and living in His love, Jesus placed His hand on my shoulder, and the scenes shifted again. This time, I saw the consequences of my life. I saw people I had taught, people who had looked to me for guidance. Some had grown in faith, but others had been hurt by my pride and judgment. I saw moments where my words, spoken without love, had pushed people away from God instead of drawing them closer. The weight of it was unbearable. "Khalid," Jesus said, his voice filled with sorrow, "your works were not evil, but they were incomplete. You sought to please God, but you did not trust Him. You sought to lead others, but you did not show them my grace." I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by the enormity of my failure. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was serving God." Jesus knelt beside me, lifting my face to meet His gaze. "Khalid, my grace is sufficient for you. You cannot earn it. It is my gift to you. You are loved, not because of what you have done, but because of who I am." His words washed over me like a healing balm. For the first time, I understood the depth of God's love. It wasn't about rules or rituals. It was about a relationship, a connection that went beyond anything I had ever experienced. It was about trusting Him, surrendering my pride and striving, and accepting His grace. The scenes shifted again, and this time I saw what my life could look like if I chose to follow Jesus. I saw myself sharing this truth with others, not with pride or judgment, but with love and humility. I saw people finding hope and freedom, not through their works, but through a relationship with God. I saw lives transformed, families healed, and a light spreading in places where there had once been only darkness. "This is what I have for you," Jesus said, his voice filled with hope. "A life of love, a life of freedom, a life of grace. But you must choose it. I will not force you." The weight of His words settled over me. I knew the choice before me was not an easy one. Following Him would mean leaving behind everything I had known. It would mean facing rejection, questions, and possibly persecution. But as I looked into His eyes, I knew that nothing else mattered. I couldn't go back to the life I had lived. I couldn't unsee the truth. "I choose you," I said, my voice trembling but resolute. "I don't know how, but I will follow you." Jesus smiled, and the light around us seemed to grow even brighter. "You are not alone," He said. "I will be with you, guiding you, strengthening you every step of the way." In that moment, the burdens I had carried for so long fell away. The striving, the fear, the pride, it all melted in the light of His love. I felt a peace that surpassed understanding, a joy that filled every corner of my being. The vision began to fade, but His presence remained with me. I knew I was being sent back, but I wasn't afraid. For the first time in my life, I understood the truth. It wasn't about what I had done. It was about what He had done for me, and that truth had set me free. As the light around me pulsed gently, I felt the warmth of Jesus' presence surrounding me. The weight of my old life, the striving, the fear, and the pride had lifted, replaced by a profound peace I could hardly comprehend. But there was still a sense of anticipation, as though something more remained for me to understand. Jesus looked at me with a mix of love and seriousness. "Khalid," he said, "you have been given a gift, the truth of who I am and the grace that brings freedom. But this truth is not for you alone. I am sending you back, and you must share what you have seen." The thought of returning to my old life filled me with both hope and dread. I wanted to live in this light forever, to remain in the overwhelming presence of Jesus. But I also understood what he was asking of me. I couldn't keep this truth to myself. It wasn't just a revelation for my own soul. It was a message for others, a lifeline for those still trapped in the same striving and fear I had known. Jesus continued, his voice calm but resolute. "The path ahead will not be easy. Many will reject you. Some will accuse you of betrayal, and others will try to silence you. The enemy will not give up what he has claimed without a fight. But take heart, I have overcome the world. My strength will sustain you, and my spirit will guide you." I looked into his eyes, the weight of his words sinking in. I had spent my life surrounded by people who trusted me, respected me, and sought my guidance. How would they react when I told them about this experience? How would they respond to the truth I had encountered? Fear crept into my heart, but Jesus reached out and placed his hand on my shoulder. "You are not alone," he said, his voice filled with compassion. "I will never leave you or forsake you. When the road feels impossible, remember this moment. Remember my love for you and for those you will speak to. Their salvation is not your burden, it is mine. Your task is to be faithful and to speak the truth." The light around us shifted, and once again I saw glimpses of what lay ahead. I saw myself standing before crowds, sharing my story. At first there was resistance, anger, disbelief, and even mockery. But then I saw hearts beginning to soften. I saw people questioning what they had always believed, not in rebellion, but in a genuine search for truth. I saw lives transformed, not because of anything I had done, but because of the grace and love of Jesus working through me. "These are the lives you will touch," Jesus said, "but you must trust me. Do not be discouraged by rejection, for I am the one who changes hearts. Simply be faithful, and I will do the rest." Tears streamed down my face as I knelt before him. "I will do it," I said, my voice trembling but resolute. "I don't know how, but I will follow you. I will share what you have shown me." Jesus smiled, and the warmth of his presence grew even stronger. "You have chosen well, Khalid. Remember, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. Go now and be a light to those who are in darkness." As he spoke, the light began to fade. I felt myself being drawn away, back to the world I had left behind. The warmth of his hand on my shoulder remained, a tangible reminder of his promise to be with me. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my body, lying on a hospital bed. The first thing I noticed was the sound of machines beeping and the hushed voices of the nurses and doctors around me. My chest ached and my body felt heavy, but my heart was alive with purpose. I had been given a second chance, and I would not waste it. The days that followed were filled with challenges. I knew I had to share what I had experienced, but I struggled to find the words. How could I explain something so profound, so life-changing to people who hadn't seen what I had seen? I prayed constantly, asking Jesus for wisdom and courage. When I finally shared my story, the reactions were as mixed as Jesus had warned me they would be. Some listened with curiosity, their eyes filled with questions they didn't yet know how to ask. Others were angry accusing me of betraying the faith I had dedicated my life to. Some dismissed me outright, refusing to believe that my experience was real. The hardest part was facing the rejection of people I had once considered friends and mentors. They couldn't understand how I could turn away from the traditions and teachings I had upheld for so long. But even in those moments of rejection, I felt the presence of Jesus reminding me that I was not alone. His love and grace sustained me, giving me the strength to continue. Over time, small changes began to happen. People who had initially dismissed my story began to ask questions. They wanted to know more about the grace I had encountered and the love that had transformed my life. Slowly but surely, I began to see the seeds of truth take root in their hearts. It wasn't always dramatic or immediate, but it was real. Now, every day is a step of faith. I no longer rely on my own knowledge or strength. I rely on the grace and love of Jesus. My mission is clear: to share His truth, to point others to His light, and to live life that reflects His love. There are still challenges, and the road is not always easy, but I know that I am walking the path He has set before me. This is the life I have been given, and I will live it with gratitude and purpose, trusting in the One who saved me and called me to be His witness. When I woke up in the hospital, the weight of what had happened settled over me like a blanket, comforting but heavy with responsibility. My body ached, but the peace in my soul was undeniable. I had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to share the truth of the grace and love I had experienced in the presence of Jesus. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I couldn't stay silent. The first step was speaking to my family. As I sat with them in the quiet of our home, I told them everything about the darkness, the light, and meeting Jesus. I shared how He had shown me the truth about my life, about the pride and striving that had blinded me to God's grace. My words came out slowly, carefully, but with conviction. The room fell silent. My wife stared at me with wide eyes, her hands trembling slightly as she held a cup of tea. My eldest son, Ahmed, looked down at the floor, his brow furrowed. Finally, my brother, a fellow scholar who had always admired my knowledge of the Quran, spoke. "Khalid," he said, his voice low, "do you realize what you are saying? You're claiming that Jesus is the truth." "Yes," I replied, my voice steady but soft. "He is not just a prophet, as we were taught. He is the way, the truth, and the life. This isn't something I read or imagined. It is what I experienced. He showed me the love and grace I had missed my entire life." My brother shook his head, his expression a mixture of confusion and anger. "Do you know what this will mean for you? For us? People will call you a traitor. They'll think you've turned your back on everything we stand for." "I understand," I said, though the thought of rejection from those I loved deeply pained me. "But I can't keep this to myself. The truth is too important." The resistance from my family was only the beginning. When I shared my story with members of my community, the reactions ranged from skepticism to outright hostility. Some accused me of being deceived, saying I had fallen into spiritual delusion. Others warned me to stop speaking, claiming I was causing confusion and division. A few even threatened me, telling me that sharing such a message would have serious consequences. It wasn't just words either. There were days when I found hateful notes left on my doorstep, or saw people I once called friends turn their backs on me in public. The rejection stung, and there were moments when I felt alone, unsure if I had the strength to continue. But every time I prayed, I felt the presence of Jesus reminding me of His promise, "I am with you always." Amid the resistance, small glimmers of hope began to appear. A man named Faisal, who had always been quiet and reserved, approached me after one of my public testimonies. His eyes were filled with tears as he said, "Khalid, I don't know what to believe anymore, but I can't deny the peace you have. I've never seen anything like it. Can we talk?" We began meeting in secret, discussing not just my experience, but also the teachings of Jesus. Faisal was cautious, but over time, I saw his heart begin to change. He started asking deeper questions, not out of doubt, but out of a desire to understand. One day, after months of conversations, he told me, "I want to know the Jesus you've spoken of. I want to experience that grace." Faisal's transformation was the first of many. Slowly, more people began to approach me, some out of curiosity, others out of desperation. They wanted to know more about this grace I spoke of, this freedom that didn't come from rules or striving, but from a relationship with Jesus. Each conversation was a reminder of why I had been sent back, and with every heart that opened to the truth, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Not everyone accepted the message, and the resistance didn't go away. There were still harsh words, cold shoulders, and moments of fear, but the fruit of my mission was undeniable. I saw families healed as they embraced grace instead of living in fear. I saw individuals who had carried heavy burdens for years finally find peace. The truth was spreading, not through force or argument, but through love and testimony. One of the most powerful moments came when a young woman named Layla, whose family had been deeply entrenched in tradition, shared her own transformation. "I used to think I wasn't good enough," she said during a gathering. "No matter how hard I tried, I always felt like I was failing God. But through Khalid's story, I've come to understand that God doesn't ask us to earn His love. It's already ours. Jesus made that possible." Hearing her speak brought tears to my eyes. It wasn't about me or what I had done. It was about the grace of Jesus working in lives far beyond my own. As time passed, the hostility I faced didn't disappear, but it became less significant in the face of the lives being changed. The seeds of truth were taking root, and while I knew not everyone would accept the message, I also knew that every soul touched by grace was worth it. I am still on this journey, sharing my story and living out the mission Jesus gave me. Each day brings new challenges and opportunities, and I rely on His strength to guide me. I am no longer the man I was. I am free, not because of what I've done, but because of what He has done for me. And I will continue to share that freedom with anyone who will listen, trusting that His love will do the rest. My life is no longer about striving, rules, or fear. It's about grace, the unearned, undeserved love of God that I encountered in the presence of Jesus. I am no longer defined by my past, my works, or even the rejection I've faced. Instead, I am defined by the love of the one who gave His life for me and called me to share His truth with the world. Each day is a reminder of the freedom I've found in Him. It's not an easy path, but it is one filled with purpose, hope, and peace that surpasses all understanding. I've learned that it's not about what I can do for God, but what He has already done for me. And that truth has changed everything. To those of you listening, I want to share this. No matter your background, your beliefs, or the weight of your past, God's love is for you. You don't need to earn it. It's already yours. Jesus is calling you into a relationship, not a religion. He's inviting you to lay down your burdens and receive His grace. Seek the truth with an open heart, and you will find Him. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Trust in His love, and you will discover the freedom and peace you've been searching for. This is the message that transformed my life, and I pray it transforms yours as well.